Hello everyone, welcome back to Talking History. My name's Liz and thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all keeping well. On this channel I do exactly as it's called, I talk all about history. And at the moment we are still in the Anglo-Saxon period, but we are heading very quickly towards the Norman period with Battle of Hastings in 1066. Last week's video I talked about the very first Viking king of England, Svein Forkbeard, and this week's video is going to be all about his son, King Cnut the Great. Cnut was born around 980 to 1000. There isn't an exact date of birth known. However, there was one site that I found when I was doing my research said that he was born in 995. It's possible that he was, and it does kind of sound right, but that was the only site I found that could back that up. So Cnut was born into a line of Scandinavian rulers who were central to Denmark's unification, and Cnut's father was Svein Forkbeard, at the time Prince of Denmark, later King of Denmark, and later King of England. But there's virtually nothing known about his childhood. Cnut had a partner. It's unclear whether they were married. His partner was called Alfgifu of Northampton, and it was suggested that she was more his concubine than his wife. They had two sons together named Svein and Harold Harefoot, who would go on to be King of England for a short period. Between the years 994 and 1007, Svein Forkbeard had led constant, continuous raids on England, whilst Cnut's brother was serving as regent of Denmark during his father's absence. Cnut appeared for the first time with his father in 1013, where Cnut held the fleet camp at Gainsborough in northeastern England, while his father subdued all of northern and eastern England. Even London, who hadn't lost any battles to the Vikings, had subdued to Svein. When Ethelred fled to Normandy, to the court of his brother-in-law, Duke Richard II. On February the 3rd in 1014, Svein Forkbeard died suddenly. Svein's eldest son, Harold, received the crown of Denmark, while at Gainsborough, Svein's army had acknowledged Cnut as his father's successor of England. Even from this young age, it appeared that Cnut was already a powerful warrior, and he must have displayed great promise, as the Viking army wouldn't have easily followed him. Although the English nobles ensured their submission to Svein and his son, they were busy conspiring with the exiled king Ethelred. Then in April 1014, Ethelred returned and gathered a large army to drive Cnut away from England. Cnut, having realised that victory wouldn't be his just yet, returned home to Denmark, where his brother Harold was in firm command. The following year, Cnut returned to England, leading an army that had overrun the English territories in early 1016. Northumbria, always the first one to surrendered to Cnut. In April, Cnut was planning his attack on London, but before he could even launch the assault, Ethelred died on the 23rd of April. Edmund Ironside, Ethelred's now oldest son, because his two older brothers had died before him, was proclaimed as king. However, by the end of May, well over half the kingdom had submitted to Cnut. London was fully behind Edmund. Cnut, who was using Mercia as a source of provision, had besieged London over the course of the summer. Later in August-September, Cnut had led an attack on East Anglia, having simultaneously besieged London. On the 18th of October in 1016, Edmund's army met Cnut's army at Ashendon. Edmund lost his battle against Cnut. A treaty was eventually negotiated, with Edmund ruling Wessex and Cnut ruling the remaining kingdoms. They both declared each other as their heirs, so with whoever died first inherited the whole kingdom. Edmund died on the 12th of November in 1016. Cnut is now the undisputed ruler of England. For the first time in years, peace was finally returning to the country. At Christmas celebrations in London, all of England's leading nobles recognised Cnut as England's king. Cnut soon began to show that not only was he a strong, powerful warrior, but he was also a powerful ruler. Cnut was an effective statesman who showed respect to his former Anglo-Saxon kings of England. So instead of rejecting them, he made a point of showing support for them. He made visits and donated gifts to shrines to former Anglo-Saxon kings. He even went to Glastonbury Abbey, where he paid his respects to his old adversary, Edmund Ironside. And this was well regarded by his English subjects. Cnut had also adopted a new law code in England that was based upon those of the Anglo-Saxon king Edgar the Peaceful, whose reign was seen as the golden age in England, as England was at peace during Edgar's 16-year reign. A strong but fair regime was strictly enforced. Cnut also introduced these policies abroad, taking advantage of innovations such as English coinage system. He also made new trade routes between England and Scandinavia, which helped to solidify a powerful relationship. In 1017, Cnut married the widow of Ethelred the Unready, Emma of Normandy. Cnut had made a precondition that the sons of their marriage would stand in line for the English throne before Cnut's older sons, or Emma's two sons she had with Ethelred the Unready, which was Alfred and Edward, who would go on to become known as Edward the Confessor. Cnut and Emma's marriage proved to be a successful one. They were a powerful political team. They had two children together, which was Arthur Cnut and Gunhilda. Arthur Cnut would become King of England and Denmark for a short while, and Gunhilda would marry Prince Henry of Germany. I apologise if you can hear that. A very noisy plane is going over. King Harold of Denmark, Cnut's brother, died in 1018. Cnut now became king of Denmark. He brought the crowns of England and Denmark together. Cnut had strengthened the bond between the countries by using brute force and with focusing on the similarities in their wealth and custom. Cnut had also become king of Norway in 1028 after a decade of conflict in Scandinavia. Cnut was now ruler to 3 kingdoms, which was collectively known as the North Sea Empire. The 3 kingdoms were united by Cnut. Excuse me. With a combination of Cnut's ability to enforce law, justice, establishing new trade routes, strengthening finances, and embracing the change in the religious climate. In 1031, Malcolm II of Scotland had also submitted to Cnut. Although Cnut's influence over Scotland had waned by the time he had died. In a work dedicated to his second wife, Emma of Normandy, he said that Cnut was the emperor of 5 kingdoms: Denmark, England, Wales, Scotland, and Norway. 5 kingdoms. I can count, yay! Cnut, who was essentially a Viking. Vikings were known for raiding monasteries and just terrorising. Cnut, like generations of his family before him, had gained a reputation as a patron of the church. Cnut had recognised that times were changing in the Viking world. Christianity was gathering momentum in Europe, and Cnut had strengthened Denmark's relationship with England, since England was one of the richest countries in Europe. The new religious commitment became more pronounced in 1027 when Cnut made his way to Rome to attend the coronation of the Holy Roman Emperor Conrad II. It was there where Cnut met Pope John XIX. For a Viking king and the Pope being able to meet as equals had demonstrated just how effective Cnut's religious manoeuvres were. There was something else that Cnut was famous for: the story of Cnut resisting the incoming tide. The story of this was first recorded in the early 12th century in Henry of Huntington's Historia Anglicum. The story goes that Cnut had ordered for a chair to be placed on the shore as the tide was coming in. So as Cnut sat in his chair, he commanded for the sea to stop coming towards him, and naturally the shore come towards him, and it soaked his feet and his legs, thus disrespecting its master. Cnut may have come across as arrogant, but the theory is that the story actually emphasizes his modesty and his wisdom, since Cnut, who had sailed as much as Cnut had, knew the tide would always naturally come in. This story offers an insight into how he was remembered after he died. The sea reminded people of his conquest of the North Sea Empire and the disobedience of the waves, pointing to his knowledge of a higher power or God in line with his Christian identity. The story really combines 2 aspects of Cnut's success: his seafaring power and his religion's obedience. Cnut reigned England for 19 years. Cnut died on the 12th of November in 1035, aged around 40. He was in Dorset when he died. He was buried in the Old Minster, Winchester, but in 1066, with the new regime of Normandy, many grand cathedrals and castles were constructed, including Winchester Cathedral. Cnut's remains were moved into the new cathedral. During the English Civil War in the 17th century, along with the remains of other people, Cnut's bones were used by Cromwell's soldiers as tools to shatter the stained glass windows. Cnut's bones were mixed up in various chests along with some other Anglo-Saxon kings, including Edgar of Wessex, Saxon bishops, and the Norman king William Rufus. I have to admit, I didn't know an awful lot about Cnut. Obviously, I heard of him. Again, like Edmund Ironside, I knew of them, but I didn't know enough about the man himself. And I have to admit, I'm actually turned into quite a fan of Cnut. When I was doing more and more research and reading about him, even though he was a Viking, but he changed England. He made England at peace again. He was succeeded by his son from his first wife. I know, if you remember what I said about the precondition he made with Emma of Normandy, just wait, that video's coming up. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe and build this very, very teeny tiny channel. And I will see you all again for the next video. Look after yourselves. Take care. Bye.